It's our village is really just to get out there and outreach and talk to many as kids as we can personally. And it's called Our Village because it takes a village. It's not just about me and my certifications. It's about if we need to talk about gut health, I'm pulling in a nutritionist. If we need to talk about trafficking, I'm pulling in my friend Tracy. If we're talking about, it's just not about me. It takes all of us to help you live your best life.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? It is Tim here with the TMA Connection, connecting you with the difference makers in the neighborhood that are just really making a positive difference in the lives of others. And sometimes with some shows, we sprinkle in a little bit of real estate. But today, it's not about the real estate because we have Miss Paige Mullhausen with Our Village Wellness Center here to talk a little bit about mental health. How appropriate, right?
I know, right? Hi, thank you for having me.
I am so excited about this. Paige and I, we've known each other for a long time.
I was going to bring this up. Our lives have circled so many times, like you can't get rid of me.
Right. Mm-hmm. And taught your daughter, and we maybe coached together with
we
youth
were
basketball.
Rivals. Yeah, we were rivals. Don't you remember the Dunkin' Donuts, huh? Whoever had to bring, you forgot. Yep. I should have brought you Dunkin' Donuts.
Did I win?
Never.
Okay, whatever. That's awesome. So Paige is a very integral person in this community who has Our Village Wellness Center. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk a little bit. I'm going to be a little selfish here today because I battle a little bit with mental health issues and trying to run a business and stuff like that. So I'm going to pick your brain a little bit too about all that. And I think there's going to be a lot of value that we're going to bring to the table.
Awesome. Yes. And please, thank you for being so honest about yourself too. I think that's key in all of this is that we have to share that we all got something, so let's just, lay it out there and figure out how to live our best lives.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And that's what it's all about. How do we live our best lives? And even though we might have a couple crutches that we need to use, we can still live our best life.
Absolutely.
So,
yes.
Give everybody a little bit of background about who you are and what this Our Village Wellness Center is all about.
All right, let me see. Okay, so I have a degree in child development and special education. I've been teaching since '96. I have a school where I actually do nursery school and preschool. But along that way, I have been a high school field hockey coach for 9 years. Coached rec for many, many years. Did a lot of things in the community throughout my entire life. And, the most important thing that I kept running into is when you play these roles as teacher and coach and you put yourself out there because, you're not just a teacher. You're not just a coach. You kind of step into people's personal lives. And doing so, I kind of become that person that people talk to and share things, whether it's the child or, my player or a parent or, what have you. And over the course of the years, I started realizing the problems that people were coming to me with were the same type of problems, maybe in a different way, said in a different way, but it was always about anxiety, depression, grades, home life. So on and so forth. And I kept feeling like there was more out for me, that I needed to do more for these people that I really started relationships with, that I need to support them more. A lot of the kids that I coached, Seamount and Wright, I have taught their kids. I've been to their weddings. I am still super close with them. So, I've kind of become this person to them. So about 4 years ago, I went back to school and got my life coach certification, my cognitive behavior and mental health.
Wow.
I am now pursuing a master's in cognitive behavior therapy.
Okay.
So, in doing that, I just had this pull that there's got to be more out there for us. There seems to be not enough outreaches. So I started a event called Girls Festival.
Okay.
This was 4 years ago. And I could have 75 girls. I sold out at 75 girls. Pulled every female vendor, every speaker, and we just had this amazing event celebrating girls, how to stay bully proof, how to recognize problems on social media. We talked about, knowing your worth and self-image. And it was a phenomenal event. And about 3 days later, I got a phone call from a mom who had shared with me that on the way home, her daughter was ready to commit suicide. And at that point, she had gotten help and just thanked me for that. And I knew with every part of me that I was onto something. And we did need to do more. Because just one event, we hit with someone.
Yeah.
And then as we were getting ready to plan our next one, I was also working on a series called You're Enough for moms.
Okay.
I've done 2 events for them, and it's just to reach out to moms and say, you're enough. You work, you got dinner on the table, you're running your kids, and you're enough. Like, how do we balance life so we're not feeling so stressed and overwhelmed? So we did 2 of those, and then on my second event going into that was for boys, and COVID hit. So I haven't been able to quite do an event since then. But, so that's kind of the long version, I think. But it's our village is really just to get out there and outreach and talk to many as kids as we can personally. And it's called Our Village because it takes a village. It's not just about me and my certifications. It's about if we need to talk about gut health, I'm pulling in a nutritionist. If we need to talk about trafficking, I'm pulling in my friend Tracy. If we're talking about, it's just not about me. It takes all of us to help you live your best life. And that's kind of the gist of it.
Well, and certainly COVID, with that coming into the scene, that certainly did not help people with mental health issues, or maybe even like speak to what has COVID exposed, or has anything come out of COVID that has challenged people with anxiety, with depression? What have you seen with that, the result of COVID and how it affected people?
Yeah, so, I always am a person that tries to stay positive in certain situations. And my hope with COVID is that we are going to get more creative. And it was going to force us to look at things through a different lens. And I really believe that mental health had the opportunity to do that. I think prior to this, it was just parents concerned for their children at times. Other than that, you really didn't hear a whole lot of mental health. I think because of COVID, parents had the opportunity to actually be home with their kids. They couldn't run to work. They couldn't run their kids to their sporting events. They were locked in. And I, loved that fact that parents were kind of forced, not all parents, but the ones that really, the kids were crying out for help, really had the opportunity for their parents to say, see them not on the go, if that makes sense. Does that make sense to you?
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
I mean, just in our family, pre-COVID, it was this kid goes to this practice, this kid goes to this event, this kid goes to this, and there's always a shuffle, and you sit down over multiple days, and you're like, when was the last time we actually sat down and had a meal together?
Yeah. Or just say, are you okay?
Just to have a good, decent conversation.
Yeah.
We're always on the run.
Yeah. So I do feel like the positive aspect of COVID is that we did have that opportunity, and that kind of forced parents to see some red flags. On the flip side of that, if a child or a person was struggling with mental health, it wasn't COVID that made mental health.
Right.
The problems were already there. It just brought more to the surface, which I think it's okay. You know, I think some things needed to probably come to the surface. You know, not in all cases, but you know, in certain cases, I feel like COVID kind of was a good thing for mental health. It allowed schools
See, that's
to do more.
and that's very interesting because I wasn't quite expecting that spin on it. Like you think, you know, we've been isolated and we haven't been able to talk with our friends, but that we've actually had to kind of pull back and not be in such a rush to go do everything, and we've really needed to kind of focus on ourselves.
Yeah.
So I didn't even think about it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely gave us time where I know with me with COVID, I'm such a go, go, go kind of person. I kind of started enjoying being home, and, you know, I like to read. I was really picking up books and reading them and focusing. I mean, really allowed me to look into our village and, you know, start, you know, I just thinking about what I wanted to do with my next step. And I feel like COVID, you know, did that for a lot of people, you know, so, you know, hopefully we don't always have to see the bad. Maybe we were forced to stay home with our families, or we were forced to think about different careers or them not being so happy in their lives and the changes they can make, or, you know, I feel like a lot of good things came out of COVID. And that's not to dismiss the ones that, you know, got sick. I got it. I was so sick. You know, it's not to dismiss any of that. It's
Not
just,
at all.
some things are just able to look through a different lens.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit about the events that you did prior to COVID. Now, as we're starting to kind of come out of that pandemic stage, are there any events that you have coming up, or anything that's kind of in the pipeline in your mind of things that you are going to be kind of promoting in the next few months, a year? What's on your agenda?
I think my biggest thing right now is I'm getting ready to be a speaker at the Air Force Marines through their drill week.
Okay.
So they have, the last few years, they do a wellness week.
Okay.
And they put out something to the Marines, and where they're like, how can we help? And mental health was a big one for them. So I am going in the end of September and teaching a class with them and being a speaker for them. So that's probably going to be one of the biggest things that I have done yet so far. I'm super excited.
That is super cool.
Yeah, and then we do have something coming up in the pipeline for another event coming up, most likely going to be in the fall.
Okay.
So, yep, kind of doing something very similar to the festival. I like to do another one. So, yeah.
That's super exciting, and certainly if I could be any of help or assistance with that would be pretty cool. That would definitely be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Talking about living your best life, which is something that I'm constantly thinking about on a daily basis. So this is where we get to the selfish part of the show, where this is more of a one-on-one counseling session here with me. Just kidding. Not really. What do you think holds people back from living their best life?
Yeah. So I love the saying, live your best life. I say it all the time. It is my trademark. And it's something that I even struggle with. Like, we all have to figure out, what does that mean to you? You know, and it is going to mean something different to everyone. Somebody is going to be much more elaborate than somebody else. But that's a question that we ask ourselves.
Right.
You know, what's holding me back from living my best life? And, you know, you have to kind of sit with that. You know, and I have done a lot of work on myself over the years. So, you know, it's living your best life. Does that mean you don't like the job you're in, a relationship you're in? Like, what are your bricks that you're building your wall? You know, for me, a lot of it had to do with the word loss. And when I do my You're Enough series, we talk about loss. And loss does not mean a death.
Okay.
It also means maybe there's a family member you no longer speak to. Maybe it's a broken, the family is divided. Maybe it is a death. Maybe it's a house you lost. Maybe it's a job that you were fired from. Loss is very deep rooted, and I feel we don't explore that enough. Sometimes when there's a loss, we just pick ourselves up and we move on. But the problem is when you move on, you're still carrying that loss with you. So if you happen to have another loss, now you're still dealing with the first loss. And you're never quite healing from those wounds.
Sure.
So, and that's very personal. That's a very personal thing. I've talked to someone that, we talked about loss and they broke down, and it was because they had a miscarriage 20 years ago and they still never dealt with the miscarriage.
To become
Yeah.
to come to peace with.
Absolutely.
That, yeah.
Absolutely. So, how can you live your best life if you're missing something or someone, or, you have to take the time and address those things. And then, it seems simple. It's not, because you really have to take the time to kind of breathe that question in. What does it look like? For me, it's my purpose of this.
Yeah.
This is my purpose. It's how do I get to more people and help more people? That's kind of my fulfillment. So what is your purpose? Like, our purpose in life for a woman, or you can't just be a mom. We have to have a purpose in our lives. Is it attending college right now to pursue your career? Is it, to start a business and get that off? What is your purpose? We have to have a purpose in life. Your purpose can't just be your children. It can't just be one sport that you play, and that's when you graduate from high school, it's over. You need more in life. So what does that mean to you? And sometimes our purpose changes.
Right.
I know in my life, I have done many awesome things, through my church and through, my businesses, where in that particular moment, that was my purpose. And then I completed it, and I was like, yeah, I think I'm done with that. And then you have to ask yourself, okay, what's my next door? That door closed. What's
Right.
the next door that's going to open? So, that's another thing, is helping people understand what is it for you? What else do you want in life?
Yeah. Something greater than money, something greater than, happiness. That's just such a broad.
It is, but gosh, is it so important? And, when I talk to adolescents too about happiness, and, the sad thing is that I get asked by my clients on how to be happy or how to try to be positive, because they don't feel it. And, it starts with gratitude.
Yeah.
What are you thankful for? Why do we always have to focus so much on the negative? Can we retrain your brain to focus on not so much what's going wrong, but what's going right?
Yeah.
What can we do in life to say, that sucked. That was a horrible experience. Let's not do that again.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because sometimes when things don't go our way, we can push that aside. Maybe that's just the universe trying to tell you that wasn't meant for you.
And I think sometimes, too, it's the perspective that we put into what has happened to us. And instead of asking, why did it happen to me? It's like, how can you change the worst thing that has ever happened to you to make that the best thing that has ever happened
100%.
to you? Right?
100%.
Think about, people that come from extreme poverty, and they make it out of that poverty, and they do something phenomenal with their life.
Yep.
The professional athlete who, there's just so many stories, and it's so remarkable to think of. There's times when life is hard and things happen and they're out of our control, and it's not the events but it's how you interpret them and what you do about them. It's E plus
Excellent.
R equals O.
Yeah,
You know?
excellent. Yep. So that's you're right on it.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has to do with cognitive behavior therapy. Like it's sometimes we need to, exactly what we're talking about is rethink, almost retrain your brain.
Mm-hmm.
You have to remember when you were first born, you only had two fears: fear of falling and fear of loud sounds.
Okay.
Two fears.
Yeah.
So all your other fears
Are
was
learned. Yeah.
So how did we learn those fears? Right? So, so we have to kind of start retraining. And sometimes things, like we said, are so horrible. When something happens to one of my daughters that just doesn't make any sense, we have to remind ourselves that you're going to do something really good with this experience.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow you're going to turn this around, whether you will use it when you're a mother and you'll share this experience with your children, or you know what I mean? Like there's bad things that have to happen. It's inevitable.
Right.
But it's exactly what you said. It's how we look at this and, cry and, do what you need to do in the moment, but then kind of reflect back on it and let's pick ourselves up and let's figure out,
Right.
how we can learn from it.
So that's a great lead into my next question is, on this journey that I'm on with, we talked about the fact that purposes can change. I was a teacher, for 16 and a half years, well established in the school system. And then at some point the purpose changed, and there needed to be something else. So now that we're on this real estate journey, it's hard.
Yeah.
Like it's not as, on social media, we post when we sold a house or we got our buyer under contract, but there's a lot of behind the scenes. And the biggest struggle that I've had is not having that core group of people around me every single day that I did with the department that I was in when I was when I was teaching. Mm-hmm. It's a very lonely job. Oh. This is a very lonely job. There's a lot of times when you're by yourself and you start thinking. So, I'm human. And there are good days and there's bad days. And sometimes when the bad days hit, it's just hard to get out of that funk. Are there any practical things that people can do when they're kind of down in the dumps to eventually just say, let's get out of this? What are some practical things that we can do to change that story that we're telling ourselves about why we're feeling so down?
Well, first of all, you got to be really proud of yourself. To change the course that you are on and to say, you know what, there's something else out there for me. Kudos to you.
Right. And
not only kudos to you, but kudos to your daughters. I get to watch you say, I don't feel like doing this anymore. I'm going to see what else is out there.
Right.
Like, that's remarkable. Yeah. We got to give ourselves a break here. Mm-hmm. And we got to be proud of ourselves for making such big, drastic decisions, especially for men, because you guys are kind of inbred to have this feeling of you got to protect your family, you got to pay the bills, you got to be, you're the man of the house. Like, how can you, now you have a new job and there's tons of fears to go along with that, and still you took that risk. You got to give yourself a pat on the back for that. That really is remarkable. And that's what we need to do in life. Mm-hmm. We need to take these challenges sometimes and not be so stuck, because life is so short, and if we're not necessarily not happy, but again, if we want to see what else is out there. Mm-hmm. So, I think first and foremost, that's what you and others need to do is remember why you did this. Yeah. And then when you start something new, it's not handed to you. Nothing's handed to you. Mm-hmm. And in the real life, you gotta work and you gotta figure it out. And having low days are just moments of refocusing, maybe. Kind of like resetting yourself. And why is it low right now? Is there something else I could be doing? Is there, another form of marketing? Is there, maybe sometimes those moments are a time for you to kind of reflect on maybe changes that need to be made. Sometimes, people are burning out. Sometimes we're overdoing it.
Right.
And we need to kind of take a step back and just kind of focus on what's really important to us, our family, our children, what's important to us, and kind of step back and kind of remember this is why we do what we're doing.
So true. We could have a whole nother podcast on like work-life family balance.
Oh, yeah. That's
Because,
that's what I'm getting ready to talk to too at the Marines. That's my topic.
Because it's in this job there's a lot of hours that we put in, right? And we're doing it for the family. Like that's most people's why. That you ask, what's your why? Simon Sinek, author, says, start with why. Yep. Right. So if we start with why and we say this is for the family, but then the time that is being taken away from the family, it kind of contradicts itself. So again, we could go down that rabbit hole, but
the rabbit hole I want to go down is the fact how Americans got it wrong.
Really?
We have it so wrong on how we have to work and stress. And why is that so important? Why do we have to have the pool in the backyard? And why do we have to have all that? Like, why can't just being family be enough? And I think, in us as Americans, the bills are tough. And, there's so much, adulting sucks.
Yes.
Adulting is
Sometimes.
really, really, really hard,
Very hard.
It's very hard. Like, let's put it out on the table. I mean, in my You're Enough series, it's tough.
Yeah.
I mean, the worry for our kids and income, But when you start traveling in other countries and start seeing how other people live, it just doesn't seem that important to them.
So true.
I've been
keep
spending
it in
a lot of
perspective.
I've been spending a lot of time in Costa Rica. And when you go there, I'm very jealous, and I want a reset button as a parent. And I just believe that. I think somehow we have been set that our priorities are not right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, 100%.
So I think, to go back to what you're saying, is, when we get in those lulls, like, get real with yourself. Like don't think about the neighbors next door that've got this, that, and the other, or what your in-laws are expecting from you, or any of that outside noise.
Yeah.
And just think about what's important to you. And if it's your family, get real. Like, do we really need this big house? Do we really need, you know what I mean? Like, is why are you so stressed? Your mortgage. Well, maybe that's not the right house.
Right. That's very true.
To start like lowering your expectations on yourself.
Yeah.
And give yourself a lot of credit.
Yeah.
We don't do that enough.
That is true. I often tell myself when I'm feeling low is to not judge myself in the lens of a moment.
Yeah.
Like this, there are going to be better days. And we were talking about this off camera, but it's like, if it were easy, what kind of journey would that be?
How many realtors would be out there if it was easy to do,
It's the process, and the process is supposed to be challenging. And that's, instead of getting down on that, is honoring that, and knowing that when it is hard and when it is challenging and there are obstacles, you're in the right place.
You absolutely are. And think about this too. Like, what is the meaning of success? Like, how do we become successful? Success isn't built on, the things that are handed to you. Like, success has to come from starting way down and building yourself up, to me, success is also failing.
Yeah.
How are you going to be the best you can be if you never fail?
It's true. And there are no failures if you are learning from something.
Absolutely. And it's like, we talk to adolescents, and, I speak to them. We speak about success, and you got to fail to learn.
Yeah.
if you just keep doing everything and everything is so great, and then you become this great CEO, how successful are you going to be?
Right.
How are you going to give any advice to anybody because nothing ever happened to you?
Yeah.
You know, you have to fail to learn.
Right.
You know, and gosh, it's so important. But sometimes our failures hit us hard. You know, where we second guess
sure.
ourselves. And, you know, you said something I wanted to tap on. What did you say? How this moment doesn't stay. And
Right.
that's
Not to judge yourself through the lens of a moment.
yes, there it is. That's great. You know, other than living your best life, my other favorite thing is you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes when you're so low, you feel so alone,
Yeah.
and you have to remember, especially with this whole, you know, mental health becoming like this, we're finally hearing so much of it. It's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you could pass 3 people in the grocery store that isn't struggling with something.
Right.
You know, we have to remember that in that moment of feeling that way, that feeling will not last forever.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're constantly feeling that same feeling, it's, you know, we have to accept the fact that, you know, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to not be okay. And, you know.
And I think we're moving into an age right now where it's not so stigmatized as maybe it used to be. Like, you're weak if you're asking for help. It's more accepted.
We're getting there.
We're getting there.
We're getting there.
I think we're moving in a positive direction.
We are definitely moving in that direction,
Yeah.
yes. I think slowly but surely it's starting to creep into the school systems.
Okay.
Slowly.
Yeah.
They actually did an article on me, and it got printed in the school newspaper, and I thought that was huge because they actually said the S word that no one will speak about, which is suicide.
Mm.
You know, nobody will talk about this, and I can't get myself into a building. I can't get them to help market me or anything, and it's because I don't watch what I say.
Yeah.
You know, whether they're 12 years old to 19, it's coming out. We're talking about suicide. We're talking about trafficking. We're talking about self-image. We're talking about those words because we can't be naive enough to think that they already know it.
Mm-hmm.
If you've given your child a cell phone, they already know it.
It's not like you're coming in to put the idea into their head.
Yeah, and I think that's the stigma. I
Yeah.
think there are a lot of parents that think if they hear the word suicide, but look at our schools right now. We have to be realistic. So I think we're getting there. I still think that there is a stigma of letting the word out. But the more you open up to it, and I open up to it, and other people open up to it, it's like, hey, you do, I do too, you know, and
Right.
then, you know, maybe one day, you know, we can all sit around a table and talk about it without not having to feel like we have to hold back. So that's my
Exactly.
hope.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I so appreciate you coming in.
Yeah.
I do want to ask you just a few more questions. Just
Okay.
a few follow-up questions. Not follow-up, but wrap-up questions.
Sure.
All right, let's go. Are you ready for this?
Oh boy.
Oh, boy. What are one or two, and when I asked you this question, you actually brought in examples.
I know, not like you could see them, but I like them to be here.
As a
like,
teacher, that's like extra credit.
sweet.
That's good stuff right there. I always like to ask guests, like, what are like one or two or three or four?
I could have brought more, but yeah.
I know, right? Because I'm an avid reader, and I love
Yeah.
to read.
Yeah.
But what are 2 or 3 or 4 books that
Yeah.
become highly recommended by you?
Yeah, so they come highly recommended to me because of my own life struggles and
Okay.
trying to work through my own things. My first book I ever read was Purpose Driven Life.
Okay.
So it is by Warren. And have you done it? I'd be surprised.
I think I actually have that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, it's by Rick Warren.
Rick Warren.
And it is just, it is written, and he is a Christian, and it was written in such a way that spoke to me because it spoke directly to me. It spoke to me in a way where I was dealing with a particular family member and literally said that that person does not need to be in my life anymore. It was the first time I heard that I can protect myself from people.
Yeah.
and it was very direct, and this was years ago. So this was my first one, and I actually give this out a lot. The other one is Life Code.
Okay.
By Dr. Phil. 3:00 in the morning when you can't sleep. He was marketing this.
Okay.
Another great book. It's another great one to how to navigate your life by people. I have a lot of adults that I speak to, and let's put it out there. There are sometimes not great in-laws, sometimes not great parents, sometimes there's a lot of family stress.
Yeah.
And just because they're family doesn't mean that you need to be the target, or we can allow narcissistic behavior happen, or we can understand what gaslighting is, and another passion that we could have a whole nother show on. But Dr. Phil hit it at home with Life Code. And then, of course, we spoke about loss. So I have Recovering from Losses in Your Life, and this is a great one, focusing on, not just death, and this is by Norman Wright. And then one that's pretty popular is Girl, Wash Your Face.
Yeah, Rachel Hollis. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah.
Follow her on Instagram, I think.
Do you really?
I do.
Oh, I'll get with her on Instagram.
Yeah.
It's a good one, and it's funny, and it's just,
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Definitely. All right. Any podcasts that you listen to? Are you a podcast listener?
Well, of course, Rich Bennett and Harford County Living.
I mean, we were referring to him off camera. Yes.
Of course.
Hey, Rich Bennett, he's a community guy. I've never met him, but
you gotta meet him.
But he does run Harford County Living website, I believe, and social media. And then now I think it's called Conversations with Rich Bennett.
Yes. Yep.
What is the podcast?
Yeah.
Rich, I don't even know you, and I'm plugging your show right
now.
now.
I know, it's okay. When I get on there, I will certainly plug you. How about that?
It sounds like a deal.
I will definitely plug you.
So-
Yeah. Actually, that's kind of it. Like,
Yeah.
I need to do more. That is something I need to do. I do a lot of driving, so that's my next.
There you go.
Yeah, maybe you can hook me up with some good ones.
I could certainly do that. How can people get involved with your organization?
The biggest thing is word of mouth.
Yeah.
Just, please, my biggest thing, and it doesn't have to be me. It could be others. On my website, which is ourvillage.com, there is a section of there that is an outreach.
Okay.
But if you're noticing, a child, and we're talking elementary school, through adulthood, if you need somebody to talk to, I'm here. If I'm not here, I've got a village of people that I can, direct you to.
Yeah.
So just word of mouth. If you know somebody, hey, do you know Paige Mullhausen? Find her on Facebook, or, Our Village Wellness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where can people find you on Facebook and Instagram? What's your handle?
What's my handle? My handle is Paige at Our Village Wellness is Instagram.
Okay.
And that's where you can find a little bit more of me, as some personal stuff, but I try to keep it.
Okay.
But through my website, and call me. It's my cell phone number, so call me, direct.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Before we get to our last question, I'd like to acknowledge you. I'd like to acknowledge you for the energy that you bring to a room. You're just such a, whether it's coming into today's interview or just from the past, there is just certain people that have infectious energies that you want to be around. You feel better about yourself when you're around that person, and that is you.
Oh, thank you.
You bring so much light into the world, and you're doing such great things, and that's why I wanted to have you here.
Oh, thank you very much.
You are a difference maker. You're a difference maker, but here's my last question. If you were going to acknowledge one person that has made the biggest impact in your life, who would that be?
So I knew this question was coming.
Yes.
And I had some time to think.
Okay.
And, I sat and I really thought on this, like really dive deep. This is a really important question.
It is.
And I'm actually going to steal something from Matthew McConaughey. And I am going to say myself.
Yourself.
Have you seen Matthew McConaughey's speech?
I have, but
yes.
Please, for the people that haven't.
This hit me so hard. But, Matthew McConaughey was asked a similar question like this, and he said himself in 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Who is your hero? And he said, myself in 5 years.
Yep.
And then in 5 years, it'll be myself in 5 years from now. I'm really proud of myself. I am really proud of where I've been, what I have gone through. Every day, I try my best to be the best version of myself. I make mistakes. I screw up royally. I am not here to talk about, like, there's certain topics I won't, give you advice on, so I am, but, I'm really proud of myself.
Yeah.
We are responsible for our own happiness. It's kids can't look at their parents, and we can't look at our parents or our spouses. We are responsible for our happiness, and I'm really happy right now, and I'm proud of myself for being there.
As you should be.
So, yeah.
As you should be. Well, ladies and gentlemen, please, please, please reach out to Paige if you have any questions, if you need help, anything like that. She's just a wealth of information. We could have gone down several rabbit holes today.
Let's do this again.
I would love to do this again. Again, you can follow Paige on Instagram. And one more time, it's at
ourvillagewellnesscenter.com is and then Paige at Our Village Wellness.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And Jay will put those things up on our screen for those who are watching on YouTube. And of course, we're going to be on all podcast platforms very, very, very soon, on Apple and Spotify and all that stuff. So it's growing, and the only way that we can grow this thing and make a positive difference is if you if you comment, if you share. So please like, comment, and share, and live your best life.
Live it, yeah.
And as I always say when I sign off, which is kind of reflective of what you're famous for saying, is live your life to the fullest.
Oh, love it.
And we'll see you soon. Take care.